Well, hello and welcome to the Ontario Network of CAPC and CPNP projects in Ontario. My name is Sydney Bell and I'm the network program lead. And I'm really delighted to welcome you here today to a special learning event that we are hosting. We're really delighted to have Maureen Hampton joining us to provide some training on the Mothers Mental Health Toolkit. And as we get started, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and give thanks to the Indigenous people of the territories from all across Ontario where we live, work, and play. Sharing this land allows us to do our work in communities with families. The land is vast and beautiful and abundant, and I invite us all to take a moment to pause and acknowledge those who have historically and continue to today to take care of it. And with that, I would like to very much welcome Maureen Hampton, who has graciously offered of her time to provide us some training into the Mothers Mental Health Toolkit, which is a really well-known an amazing resource, and I'm excited to learn more about it with you all with her. So welcome, Maureen.
Thank you.
It's over to you.
Welcome, everybody. It's I hope everybody is got a coffee and ready to go. I think I'd like to start with some introductions, if that's possible. I can start, and maybe Sydney, you could just ask people as the names that you see. Maybe we could just say hi and where you're from. My name is Maureen Hampton. I work for Connections, which is a CAPC CPNP program just outside of Ottawa. And I've been here for 22 years. And I love the Mental Health Toolkit. I took the training and I'm the East Zone rep for training in Ontario. So I'm so glad to see so many people have come in.
That's awesome. So you're welcoming people to, unmute themselves and come on camera if they wish and
Sure.
introduce themselves.
That'd be
Okay,
great.
awesome. I said, well, Teresa has joined us. Do you want to say hello, Teresa?
Hi, good morning. My name is
morning.
Teresa. I'm from Native Women's Resource Center of Toronto. I'm the Indigenous Healthy Babies, Healthy Children Coordinator, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Welcome.
Yeah. And I see, I'm just going to go through the list perhaps. That might be quicker. Brenda, would you like to say hello? Okay, maybe we'll circle back to Brenda. She might not be in a place where she can unmute right now.
Hello, I'm back. I'm here.
Hello.
Sorry,
Hello.
I was just technology problems.
No
Good
worries.
morning. I'm Brenda from Beandigan from Thunder Bay, CAPC coordinator.
Oh, great. Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Chloe is here. Chloe, would you like to say hello?
Hi everyone, my name is Chloe. I'm a public health dietitian with the Eastern Ontario Health Unit.
Welcome.
I'm in Castleman right now, Castleman, Ontario.
Beautiful. Thank you, Chloe. Christina.
Hi, good morning. Well, my name is Christina, and I am a family support worker with the Healthy Beginnings program in Toronto. And we're with the Southwest Coalition.
Great.
Great. Next is Diana Brown. Diana.
Hi, my name is Diana Brown. I am the Quality and Training Specialist for Early On Waterloo Region.
Excellent. Thank you. Diane Tomlinson. I think that's a name I recognize. Hello. We're not hearing you. There you go.
There I am. Sorry,
There
I
you
can't
are.
see if I'm on video. I can't see myself if I am. I'm thrilled to be here.
Hello.
I see some familiar names. I am retired last year after 12 years as the CPMP coordinator, and I used Mothers Mental Health Toolkit so much when I was coordinating the program, and I lost my manual, and I don't want to stay retired. I have found out in the last year that mental health is so, so important, even more so than I thought before. Because I've never lived it, but I've lived it the last year, mental health, since retiring. And I want to reintroduce myself and reacquaint myself with this program because this is something that I want to do. I have been doing some facilitating for programs with Indigenous Diabetes Health Circle, and this might be something that I can utilize with them or just branch out on my own and use it because I've had a lot of mothers that I work with kind of connect with me, and it surprised me how important it is to keep connecting with the parents, especially after COVID. So,
Well, welcome.
yeah, so this is really important to me. And I'm so glad that I was allowed, or not allowed, but that I came in on this.
Great.
And that I want to keep, doing
Glad to
some
have you.
work with this. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Nice to see you, Diane. There's E. Klassen.
Hi, I'm Lisa Clausen. I work with I'm a mom and baby outreach worker here in the Almer area with the Low German Mennonite woman.
Great. Welcome. And I think I know this name, Ellen Bachtold. Hello.
Hi.
Hey,
I feel like
Ellen.
I spend all my days with you, Sydney. I am Ellen Bachtold. I'm from Windsor, Essex County. I'm one of the dietitians here, and I received training at the same time on the Mothers Mental Toolkit as Maureen did, which is like what, 8 years ago, Maureen, I think.
I think it's more than that.
Okay, so it was a really long time ago, and I use it a lot, and it's just I'm here today to just hear what people are doing with it and the creative ways that you're using it in your communities so I can bring it back to my own. Thanks,
Super.
Maureen.
Good to see you, Ellen, always.
Florence, are you able to say hello?
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. My name is Florence, and I'm from Minnewacan Lodge. CAPC program, been around for a little bit, and just here ready to learn. Miigwech, everyone.
Great. Welcome.
Lovely to have you here, Florence. And there's now Hema or Hema. Hopefully I've pronounced it correctly in one of those.
Yeah, Hema.
Hema, I didn't you? Okay, third tries the charm.
Yeah, it's a spells. Yeah, I got all the time. I got a different names, but it's okay as long as it's the H sound there. I am good.
Oh, Hema. Yeah. Welcome.
Well, yeah, thank you. So I'm a program lead for the history or healthy beginnings for healthy babies. I did the in person like probably 10 years ago. So like it's a really helpful toolkit. Also, I lead the other program is a newcomer parents program. So I always use a worksheet from the toolkit. Like I can use it for different programs. It's a great toolkit. It's a good refresher. Thank you for this.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Jennifer Bow, are you able to say hello?
I am able to say hello. My video, for some reason, it's failing to, I might have to restart my computer, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
You may hear in the background, I'm alone at the center today, but there's a house full of families playing in our play center. This is my first time taking the actual training for Mothers Mental Health Toolkit, but we do have the resources here. I think a past supervisor took it in 2014, so it's probably been around for quite some time and very useful. We've just been certified in the connections breaking the cycle.
Awesome.
So invited to come to this. We're looking to conduct that group during the summer months with some individuals. And so I'm looking forward to using this in Nobody's Perfect and other.
That's good to hear. That's we're going to be talking about that. So that's great.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Happy to be here. And we continue to have smoke all about us as Ontario
Yes.
fire. It's awful, but let's pray for rain, people.
Yes, that's right.
Mhm. Thank you. And Joelle, I think you're here with us on screen. Hello.
Hello, I'm Joelle. I am the program coordinator for healthy growth and development at the Porcupine Health Unit. So I sit in Timmins. Yeah, and I cover the CPNP program at our health unit.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It always, anyway, I grew up in a town called Porcupine Plain in Saskatchewan, but I always have a little special thrill when you folks introduce yourself from Porcupine Health Unit. And here's another fun thing, Judy from Camino.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I'm Judy, and I used to be physically much closer to Sydney, but
Yeah, I know.
I'm the CPNP coordinator at in Waterloo with used to be Horizon. People all know Horizon, and now we are called Camino. And I did the training with Ellen. I don't know how many years ago, but I still have all my tabs. If you can see all my tabs here.
That's great.
But I find that I'm still using the same ones, like, and I work with
Get our
public
favorites.
health. Yeah, and I'd like to see what other people are using, because I feel like I could be using a lot more out of the tool than I have been. So yeah,
Super.
I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
So nice to see you, Judy. Caitlin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin. I am currently completing an internship through the summer with TI Ontario, one of the Ottawa locations with the Early On team. TI Ontario is a Inuit community resource center.
Terrific. Welcome.
Thank you. And Kirsten is next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsten, and I'm happy to be here, happy to learn today from both Sydney and Maureen. And I'm a parent-child educator with Sick Kids Center for Community Mental Health, doing prevention and early intervention. So looking forward to hearing more about this toolkit. Thanks.
Welcome. And then Krista. Obviously, we are going in alphabetical order. Is pretty. She's there. Krista.
Hi, my name's Krista. I'm the early years coordinator here in Terrace Bay and Scriber. I do the Healthy Beginnings program for CAPC CPNP here in Terrace Bay and Scriber. And I'm looking forward to learn more about the Mother Mental Health Toolkit.
Great.
You're welcome. Linda. Linda, are you able to say hello?
Hi, my name is Linda, and I work in Toronto at Surrey Place. I work in a program that supports and provides education to parents with an intellectual disability. So I'm quite interested in hearing more about this toolkit and how and if it could be modified to be an appropriate support for us and for the parents that we serve. Thank you.
Great.
Welcome. Melinda.
Morning.
Hi.
How are you guys?
Good.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good. I'm the CAPC worker for Tunga Sivinget Inuit. It's going to be 3 years December. And we work with our Inuit families here in Ottawa with kids 0 to 6.
Great.
Good morning. Melissa.
Hi, my name's Melissa. I'm in Elliott Lake and I work for the Elliott Lake Child and Family Center. It's an early on. I apologize for my voice. The smoke and air quality is really getting to me.
Yeah.
I've been here since 2017 permanently. Like before that, I worked on and off, but I'm really looking forward to this Mothers Mental Health Toolkit because I can usually relate to the parents that come only from my own experience, as I have 4 kids, but it's really nice to have a manual because I always have that little bit of panic when a parent opens up about how much they're kind of struggling and they're currently already on medication, they're already going to counseling, and they're coming to us to kind of have like a friendship or like a bond with other parents and people that have been through it. And I feel a little weird sharing my own stuff. So it's good to have something to go off of instead of like getting personal with them in that kind of way.
Super. That's great, Melissa.
And Nicole is next. Oh, here's your
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, I'm Nicole Caballo Martinez. I work with Family and Community Action Program in Durham, and I'm a community facilitator. I'm fairly new to this position, but I've been a registered ECE for over 30 years. So I have that in my back pocket for help.
Terrific.
Yeah. Good morning. Great to have you here. And so Nicole, then I believe Norma. Hello, Norma.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Norma Ventura. I work at Tunga Inuit in Ottawa, Ontario, alongside Melinda. And I currently cover the CPNP program here at our Early On program.
Welcome.
And next is Rochelle. I'm not sure if it's the Rochelle I know or another Rochelle.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Rachel Pelletier, and I'm in Timmins, and I work for Northeastern Ontario Family and Children's Services. I'm also the program supervisor for Early Years in Prevention, and those programs are Brighter Futures, which is our CAPC CPNP and Early On Center in Timmins and CAP. And also the program, the volunteer program supervisor as well. And I'm here today because I truly believe that Mothers Mental Health Toolkit is a great toolkit to use to guide our conversations with mental health as with mothers and all families. However, we've been using it in an informal way, and I want to be able to mentor and coach my staff to use this toolkit in more formally. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here and learn.
That's great.
Okay, now we're in the essence. So we have two Sandras. So Sandra A. Sandra R. Oh,
Artuzzi.
Artuzzi. Sorry about that. Your name shifted on me and I couldn't see
No
it.
problem. I'm Sandra from Macaulay Center, located in Toronto, and I'm really glad to be here. And like Rachel, or who spoke earlier, I do want to pass this more of this information to the staff, because we're seeing a lot of families struggling with mental health. And so I'm really glad. This is great timing. Thank you.
Super.
Welcome. And now Sandra Everetts.
Hi, I'm Sandra Everetts. I'm a public health nurse with the City of Hamilton. I'm also one of the resource team leads with the City of Hamilton in the reproductive child health. And so I'm super excited to be here and learn.
Great.
Welcome.
Everybody's so positive. It's great.
I know. Good vibes. Stephanie Robinson. Oh, hello, Stephanie.
Hello, I'm a public health nurse with the City of Hamilton, and I run one of the CPNP groups here in Hamilton.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have two Tanyas or Tanyas. Tanya G. Hopefully I chose the right way to say it.
Yep, you guys, Tanya.
Tanya.
Hi. So it's funny because I think the last three of us are from the same group. So
Oh,
I'm
are
from the
you?
city of yeah. So I'm from the City of Hamilton as well, public health nurse. I also work on the resource lead team. So I'm really excited to learn more about the Mothers Mental Health Toolkit and how we can apply it and kind of show our clients it as well.
Great.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. And then Tanya Lalonde from Breast Bell.
Hi, I'm Tanya Lalonde. I'm the early years coordinator in Manitowaj, and I also run the CAPC CPNP for Healthy Beginnings program here. and I'm very excited to hear what everybody has to say today.
Good.
Thank you. Teresa.
Is it me again?
Oh, maybe. Well, we'll just say hello to you again. Nice
Hello.
to see you again. Yes, I think, yes, my apologies, Teresa. So then moving on to Trudy.
Good morning. Trudy Weeb here. I work at the FESPA program, which is out of Elmer, Ontario. It's a CAPC CPNP project. I'm looking forward to learning some tips on how to support women with their mental health. I'm not always frontline, but sometimes I'm required to pick up or drop off participants. And there are many interesting topics that come up during the drive. So I'd love to be able to offer some sound support for these young mamas.
Thank you. And I believe this is our last person, Vaishali.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vishali. I'm an early childhood vision consultant with Surrey Place. I work in the Toronto region. I'm really happy and excited to be here and to be participating. Thank you so much for putting this on today.
Super. That's
Can
great
we just,
introductions.
yeah. Did we miss anybody though? I don't want to. I think we went through it all, but okay. Okay, over to you, Maureen.
Well, I think we did our welcome and introductions. I think we're so we are going to get right into the toolkit itself and the different chapters and the things it can offer. But I think we're going to start with a poll just to see. We have a couple questions for you. So if you would just follow the prompts there, that would be great.
So shall we do the type of program that
Sure,
people
that'd be
look
great.
for? Okay. Just great. People are answering.
Perfect.
Just a few more. Give one more little moment here. Anybody else who hasn't had a chance? And I think, yeah, we're pretty close. So a couple more.
That's great. Terrific.
Okay,
That's a good
so
mixture.
sharing those results. Looks like the majority are folks who work for both CAPC and CPNP.
Terrific. That's
And then,
great. Thank you, everybody.
Now, do you want me to launch the other one as well?
Sure.
Okay. So this poll is about your awareness or how much if you've used the toolkit before and in what way. Just another moment. Oh, looks like almost everybody's had a chance. That's excellent. So here you go, Maureen.
That's terrific. Good, good. We have a great, lots of new interest. I'm glad to see that. That's wonderful.
Right. Oh, sorry. Did I share? Okay.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you, everybody. Super. Great.
Okay.
All right. I think that's good, Sydney.
I think so. Is there anything else? Yeah,
Nope,
you needed.
I think that was it.
I
Is
think
that
so.
it?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
two
great.
poll questions.
Okay. Well, that's great. So lots of new people and, you know, lots of new interests, which is terrific. So I have some slides here and I'm not going to read the slides because I know that can get really tedious. But at any point, if anyone has any questions, just raise your hand in your little box there, and I'm sure Sydney will be able to catch the hands for me, and we can have discussion as we go. Please don't be shy. It makes the more interactive, the better, and feel free. Okay. So yeah, so we're introducing the Mothers Mental Health Toolkit. It was a project of the Reproductive Mental Health Services in Halifax. A wonderful group of staff developed this book. Psychiatrist project lead was Dr. Joanne McDonald. She's a wonderful woman, and Colleen Flynn. I met both of them, and they were terrific. And they actually had input from CAPC, CPNP mothers as well. So it is really a grassroots book, and really proud to be a part of it. So the Mothers Mental Health Toolkit was first developed to hopefully be a first step for service providers to get comfortable talking about mental health with women. It can be awkward. We don't know how to maybe introduce the subject, or you might suspect something, but how do you talk about it? And, you know, a lot of women are visual learners, and they don't even know how to express themselves about their own mental health. So the worksheets that are in this book can be really useful for helping women to identify their own struggles that they may not even have been aware of. So this can be just a terrific tool for that. And it's a resource for mothers and the caregivers too. It can be a supportive tool for partners that they're with, and could be, you know, if a grandma or grandpa's involved, that kind of thing too. So it's a great tool, and it is the first step forward. So these are the things it is not used for. We like to put this in because it's not a replacement for mental health services. In no way is it a diagnostic tool. You know, but it can be the first step toward maybe referrals and that kind of thing. It is, as we know, I'm sure most of you know, the mother's mental health is critical to infant attachment and development. It's imperative that moms feel good in order to help their children develop to their full potential. Let's see here. Mothering is one of the most important jobs in the community. It's often one of the most unrecognized jobs, and you know, I don't think people always appreciate how much mothers do. Mother's mental health enhances her capacity to promote healthy practices emotionally and physically for her children. We know that attachment and child development is often based on the mother's mental health and her ability to parent effectively. For many people, they think mothering is instinctive, and for many it is not. And I think that's one of the greatest things I've learned through the years is it isn't. It is some moms just don't know what to do, and they don't feel any kind of even connection to the baby often for a while. So that can lead to feeling like they're not good enough, that they're not a very good mother, and you know, they feel unprepared. So and we also know that if a mom is exhausted from stresses in her life, including poverty and certainly abuse, that will certainly have an impact on her child. So when mothers have chronic or untreated mental health problems, their children have demonstrated delays in education, physical and emotional development. We know that for a fact. Women may not know how to describe their mental health, like we talked about before. This is where this toolkit can be really effective to help mothers describe what they're feeling, because it's hard sometimes to put things in words. A woman is at the highest risk of developing new mental illness in the first year after a baby's born. And, you know, sometimes that 6 to 8 week is a critical point where it's really important to ask the questions. How are you feeling? How are you sleeping? And there's some great information in this book on how to do that. 15% of new mothers experience postpartum mood disorder. These are older statistics. I hate that word, but and 60 to 70% of women with a serious postpartum mood disorder have no previous history of mental health issues. And sadly, the stat is still at only 50% of women who are suffering at that high degree actually seek help, because they don't even know where to begin. And if their doctor doesn't actually ask them the question, they may not bring it up. We know there's a doctor shortage, especially in Ontario, And often you go into the doctor and they say this, you know, you can talk about one thing and then move on. So, you know, we're more complicated than that. And especially for new moms, they need a lot of time, and they need to have someone who can spend enough time to really find out how they're really doing. Service providers are critical and highlighted the importance of mothers' mental health wellness. We can be advocates for the community, and not just for the mothers, but to advocate to the community how important it is to be kind to new mothers and help them and support them, and you know, be the community that surrounds them. We can help educate moms about postpartum issues, reducing the stigma, and advocating for interventions and treatments. We can make a big difference in a mom's life, and never underestimate your impact. Sometimes we work with women and we don't know, did we really do anything? But you know, so often we have a bigger impact than we think. And if we use this toolkit, it can increase the likelihood of success for the mom. So does anybody have any questions about that?
Hi, Maureen. I haven't seen any questions.
All right. So the toolkit it's a tool for the service provider and for the mother. It is never to be intended to give to the mother. We've run into that a lot, where people think, oh, that I'll just give this to the mom, but she could read information in there that she may not understand. She may panic about some of, you know, oh, I have this, or I have that, or, you know, so this is depending on, you know, the mom you're working with. We never give the book to the mom. We give pages to the mom. We work with pages with the mom, but it's really not a book to be intended to give to the mom. So that's something to keep in mind. And every page has, I don't know if people have copies of this in front of them, but a page will have service provider on it or mother. So that's what's so great about it. It gives us insight into, you know, what this next page might be useful for, or, you know, how to talk about something like family violence. It's got some great, really great information for service providers. So it's really beautiful colors, and it was really well laid out. And we really encourage you to, when you do print a page for the mom, to use it in color if possible. I know it's a little more expensive to print, but you know, we know that women will more likely fill the paper out if it's in color. It's more friendly, it's more inviting. So we try to always print them out in color when we do it, when we work with women. So chapter 1 is considered the wellness and self-care. It's a really important chapter. I use this chapter. I think one of the most, I think this is the chapter I use the most. It has terrific pages in it on nutrition, you know, how to get ready for a medical appointment. It has a section on budgeting and helping, and I say mom, but it could be caregiver as well, helping the caregiver, you know, reduce some of the stress by being able to, you know, get their dollar to go further with in their budget, because we know now, right now, especially food is really expensive. It helps them with relaxation, the stress management. There's a part of substance use, understanding their own substance use. And also it goes further into self-development. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Who could I possibly become? Because we don't normally ask those questions. You know, women are not normally, we don't say to women, so, you know, what are your long-term goals? Do you have any hopes or dreams? And that's part of self-care, is setting goals, the, you know, weekly goals, maybe monthly goals, long-term goals. And, you know, I don't know, I think as women, when we're mothers and we have so much responsibility, it's hard for us to, you know, maybe think down the road, oh, I'd really like to go to school, or I've always had a dream of doing this. And I think it's really important that we talk about these things with women, so that they keep it in their mind, and that they see that we believe they have hope to do more with their life if that's what they want to do. Because sometimes it just takes one of us to believe in somebody, and you know, the sky's the limit. So this is a great tool. I have an example here of one of the sheets I use a lot, and can everyone see that? It's called the self-care checklist. So it says on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you doing in your nutrition? I did this sheet yesterday in group, and a woman said, you know, she drinks her coffee in the morning and she'll be lucky if she has a sandwich by dinner time. So she may be feeding her children or feeding her partner, but she's not feeding herself. And so you know, this helped her identify, wow, I didn't realize that. I didn't really think about feeding myself, or that I will be feeling better if I actually am eating a good meal and you know, feeding my brain and feeding my cells in my body. Talking about movement, exercise, self-rest, because we know sleep is so important when it comes to healthy mental health. Did she ever get a time to relax, or is she 24/7? Kids, they sleep with you, they you know, they go to the bathroom with you, they're in there when you're having a shower. Do you ever get a break? So this is a tool we use a lot, and also helps women identify that self-care is not just a bubble bath. Self-care is taking your medication on time. Self-care is going to the doctor and making sure that you're healthy, not just your children. It might mean, you know, getting out for a walk, even if it's with your kids, but getting that physical movement. You know, so this is a great, I really encourage you to take a look at this chapter.
Maureen, there's just a couple of things I wanted to interrupt. Sorry. One person posted that, I think it was Hema said that she uses that self-care checklist a lot too.
Oh, good.
And there was a question about the workbook itself, Maureen. Melissa has said that she thinks she might have printed the wrong book because she noticed she was missing pages when putting the book in sleeves, and that she thinks she might have a copy that only has the pages for the mothers. Is that possible?
Oh, I'm not sure, but definitely I have lots of books. So if anyone wants a like a real book that they can just photocopy, I'm happy to send it out. I'll, you know, if you send me, I'll give you my email at the end of the presentation, and you just email me a request and I'll get that book off mailed to you. And then you can print it off. But the book is really nice. It's you know, it's got a nice binding, and it's in color. I'm happy to send it out.
Okay, and I'll repost the link to the full book as well in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I think that's it for now.
Okay, great. So chapter 2 is called The Mothering Role. You know, there's a great page in there about the hats that a mother wears. So she's the caregiver, she's the you know, the cleaner, she's the nurse, she's the caregiver, you know, and that how it's a 24-hour-a-day job. She's the protector. And that's all, you know, we expect this of the mother too. It's not just that you know, these roles are put on her. We expect her to protect her children, feed her children. And, you know, we want her to feed them really well. We want them. And sometimes there can be a lot of judgment. And I think sometimes when we can recognize how many roles are on her and her responsibility level, it gives her, you know, recognition is so important, right? We all like to be recognized for our work. We like to be recognized for what we've done well. And we like to be recognized when, you know, when we're feeling low or feeling a bit overwhelmed with all of our responsibilities. So this is a, you know, and it also shows the realities of what motherhood looks like. And sometimes when, again, we can recognize that for a woman, it makes her feel better that she's maybe not doing 100% at every single role, but she's doing 100% at this role. And our job is to help her, you know, recognize she doesn't have to be perfect to be a good mother, right? Excuse me. We talk, you know, in this chapter, we talk about attachment and what that looks like. We talk about emotional coping strategies. You know, there's a page in here for partners to, you know, in relationship help. How do you support your partner in being the best mother she can be? There's a part on parenting through depression, which is very difficult. It's really hard to have enough energy when you feel low and sad and detached. You know, how do you have enough energy to play with your children or take them to the park or feed them, you know, make a big meal that's super nutritious? You know, sometimes it's just, you know, you're lucky if you get a Delissio pizza in the oven, right? And that's okay. We can help women try not to be so hard on themselves and try to help and build supports for them. And there's a dad's guide for crying babies, because dads don't understand sometimes the you know, there's the different cries, so it helps them identify that, and then they can support their partner in that as well. So yeah, that's a really good chapter. And the page I chose for that one is this one. I love this page. We encourage women to put this up on their fridge. We might say, so in the top purple circle, put the person that you'd call if you're in crisis. So if you're really feeling like low or, you know, desperate, this is the person I would call. You might have a counselor's name in one of the circles. You might have your best friend. And some women may only have one number, and that's okay. As long as we can, you know, get one number in their circle, who they could call for something. And maybe a different thing. It might be like, I have a friend, but she doesn't like talking about problems, but you know, she's great to go for a coffee with, or we can meet in the park and play with our kids. That's another support person. We don't have to have everybody doesn't have to fill all of our needs. We can have, you know, we can have a movie friend. We can have a go to the park friend. We can have someone who will listen to our thoughts about our own depression. You may have your counselor in there. So this is a really good tool, and it helps women think about, okay, do they have support? And for us, if they can't put a number in here, we get our number in there for them, and then we help them build their support team. So this is a super tool. I use this almost, I would say I use this tool with almost every woman I work with, just to be sure that in crisis, they would know who to call, and you know, make sure they have people in their life that they know care about them. And I have had women say, I don't have anybody. So that's someone you want to spend some extra time with, and at least try to come up with 2 people, including yourself, maybe, or a crisis line, or could be their doctor, whoever, right? Try to brainstorm with them and try to find those supports for them. Really, really important. Chapter 3, it's about understanding the mother's mental health. This section has a lot on family violence, and I'm not sure if people are comfortable talking about family violence. I'm also a domestic violence worker and have been for over 20 years. And I can tell you that family violence is an epidemic in our society. It's actually been, you know, declared an epidemic in my community, in the Ottawa community. And we know that mental health problems and domestic violence go together. And there is a page in here on page 97. And so if you're uncomfortable about talking about family violence, they actually have a service provider page here that talks about, how do I talk to a woman about it? And it's really, what this says is, ask about the abuse and violence. You know, you can say things like, you know, when you and your partner argue, does it end up in yelling? Does he get really angry at you? Does he name call? Does he ever break things? And so you can, and when you ask the question, then they know that you're not afraid of their answer, because there's a lot of shame attached to family violence, because it often comes out of nowhere. They had no idea this was going to be a part of their relationship. It's important to ask the direct question. And then the second part of it is acknowledging it. Wow, that must be really hard for you. That must be really scary. You must walk on eggshells. I'm really sorry that you're going through this. I'm here to listen and I want to help you. You know, and then expressing belief, saying to the woman, you know what, I really believe you. I know that family violence is something that is doubted, and but I believe you. I want you to know that. And we don't want to say, why don't you leave? How come you haven't left? Because the question is not about why haven't you left? The question is, why does the partner abuse you? That's the question. And we have to get away from this, again, this load of responsibility on a mother to leave her home with children and go to a women's shelter, which is full most of the time, and then live communally with a bunch of families. It's not easy. And I mean, there's some really nice shelters out there now that have, you know, improved the living quality, where they're not sharing bathrooms and that, but it's still quite a uproot for somebody who has done nothing wrong, and then the partner is left in the house with all the stuff and the comfort. So really important for us not to go to that place of, why don't you just leave? We can talk about their safety with them. So tell me, do you feel safe in your home? What would happen if your partner was to get really violent? Do you have a plan in place how you would protect yourself or protect your children? And there's lots of tools for safety planning, and you can make referrals to women's shelters. Sometimes they have outreach offices where they don't actually have to, you know, go to the shelter for support. You know, stressing that no one deserves the abuse, that she is not to blame for the abuse. Doesn't matter whether dinner was made, or the kids were noisy, or the house wasn't clean, or she was late, whatever, you know, he's telling her, those are not reasons for violence. And it's really important to talk to women about that. and stress that no one deserves the abuse, and giving them some resources and helping them. And we don't want to give them advice like you should leave. You could say, how do you feel about, it must be hard for you to know what to do. Allow them to say what they want, or say that I don't want to leave, I love him, because if people know about family violence, there's a cycle, and often the person is quite kind to them and loving, and it's very confusing. So but we also, on the other hand, know that family violence is very detrimental to a child's brain development. And we know now, we can see on an MRI that a child that lives with violence, or hears violence, or knows of violence happening, because again, a child doesn't need to witness violence to know violence is happening. They can see broken things, they can see bruises on their mother, they can see the different in moods, they feel fear of the abuser. So those things are all have an impact on their brain development. So this is an important chapter to talk about. And I've heard through my career, I've heard so many different people say, really? Because he's such a teddy bear. Wow, really? That guy's so nice. I find that hard to believe. In general, we don't believe women. And in my experience, women don't lie about this, because this is very full of shame, and no woman wants to be going through this. So of course, there's always that small percentage in any system, but I would believe a woman no matter what she tells you. And I heard once a worker tell me that, she exaggerates her story. I called her on that. I just said, why would she? And if she is, she's doing it for a reason. So maybe she really needs people to believe her. So really be aware of that piece. And if anyone has any questions on that, I'm happy to answer any questions on that. Does anyone have any questions around the family violence piece before I go on?
Feel free to put up your hand or unmute yourself.
Yeah.
If you have a question for Maureen.
I know a lot of people are really worried about, how do I talk to a woman about violence? Because, once I went into Emerge, and the nurse, it's much better now because there's been so much more training, but a nurse said to me, so you're not abused or anything, are you? And that shut me down right away. Like if I was, I wouldn't have said so. So I think Jennifer has her hand up.
Yeah.
Okay, I just had to unmute here. I actually have some single dads, and one is the sole custodian of his child and is the victim of interpersonal violence. So can these be modified? Like, because I know on the sheets they say mother on the side, and I see that Melinda shared that page 77 has she uses it with dads as well. But could you recommend if there's a way to give some of these, because they have mental health issues too, being the sole provider and
for sure
all of that. But on top of it, their society tells them that men should not whine or wince, or like they're supposed to be
for sure,
not cry, and
be a man, all that stuff, right?
And so I have a dad that he comes when there's actually less people here, because he wants to make a friend and have his daughter buddy. And I've just let him talk, and I've not, like, I'm very cognizant since taking the connections, not to say like you need to not see this person or all of that. Right. How does that make you feel? And that's unfortunate. And his biggest thing is that, like, before it was acknowledged that he was actually the victim, he was the one being removed from the situation constantly, being removed from his daughter's life, until he could find help from the powers that be that were able to say, okay, your daughter's best with you. Actually, we figured it out now. So
I think we are seeing a lot more men come forward with their experiences with violent and abusive women. Absolutely. In general, women are not as lethal as men. Like, we know that, like, it's like the percentage is quite significant. So And I'm in no way judging that, and, you know, we run into this question a lot, but what about men? You know, in my experience, it's, men can be very lethal to women. There's a bigger fear of death with when you're abused by a man, but yes, there is abuse of women, and it can be really shameful for a guy, right? Because it's like, well, be a man, stand up to her, all that stuff. And I'm working with dads right now, and we're developing a program for dads with the Connections program, and because this is happening, and for sure. And I think there's this sheet, although it says mother, you know, just highlight, you know, just cover it up and put father, right? Like just before you photocopy it, right? Because it uses the word partner. And yeah, it's important to, you know, abuse is abuse. So if anyone is experiencing abuse, and same with children, are we harming children? Because so yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's, you know, I would just take one of my highlighters and, or not highlighters, but the whiteouts, and I would just write father on there. Before
Okay.
giving the sheet, or I
I
just
was
cut
just,
that part
because
right
I
off.
know this hasn't been reprinted in some time, because this particular resource we've had it since 2014 for sure. But if they ever reprint, I thought maybe it could be parent.
Yeah, but this is, you know, we know and the stats show that parenting falls on the mother the most. Now, I think we're seeing a shift, because I just held a fathering focus group, and I was surprised how many dads had full custody. But this was developed for mothers and in the mothering role. So the fathering role is different than the mothering role. And but I think we know that in society we need to develop more programs for dads, and certainly I could you know, suggest that to the team that developed this book, that, you know, maybe it's time we developed a fathering tool book, right? And because it would look different. And I know that's why I want to do the Connections program for fathers, because they have the same experiences. And if we want dads to be involved and good caregivers, and you know, I'm a new grandmother, and I'm in shock watching my son. He is by far the best father I've ever seen in action. And you know, very much the attachment figure, I think. And it's wonderful to see. And so yeah, I agree with you. We need to start developing more programs for dads. And if you think a dad is experiencing violence or, you know, abuse in any form, I encourage you to talk to him about it. And you can talk the same way, but just keep in mind that when you're talking with a woman, it can lead to being lethal, you know, especially if there isn't like a physical abuse, that there's just a threat of it, or, you know, what I could do, or whatever, that woman is at very high risk of being killed by her partner. And the statistics are, again, probably because a lot of men aren't coming forward, but, you know, we're looking at 90% of abuse is the male is the perpetrator, at least. So keeping that in mind, but still understanding that we have to be open and not just assume just because it's a man, he can't be abused. And that's important. And so thank you for bringing that up, for sure.
Maureen, if I may just say very quickly, you folks might be interested to know our network is hosting our it's become an annual June Father Focus event next Friday on the 16th. And I'll be sending out, I think, information today in the newsletter. So we'll be having a discussion panel on dad's mental health and well-being.
That's great.
So watch your emails for that and the newsletter. And I'll also put a link in the chat for dadcentral.ca. That is such a great resource for resources in supporting working with dads as well. So just wanted to mention that.
And we're, as of September, we're going to be running the Connections group for dads, and we're going to have it evaluated. So, you know, I'm excited about that because it's really needed. And we had a focus group for fathers and went really well. And I was shocked to hear how much they were willing to share. And so we're not actually changing the curriculum too much. And we're going to be running a 10-week program for dads. So I'll have some good news maybe in the new year about that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Remember, family violence and mental health go together. That's it. Also, so chapter 3 goes on not just about family violence, but you know, causes of mental health, signs and symptoms of mental health, and diagnostic possibilities. So it's a great thing for service providers. Chapter 3 is, whoops. Oh, yeah. So I'm sorry. So, oh, no, I'm getting ahead. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm not very good with the PowerPoint technology piece. I'm sorry. I was just trying to go back and end up going ahead. And I don't know how to go back. Sydney, can I use my? Oh,
You should be, did you
there we
find
go.
it? Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, people.
No,
So
oh,
chapter
oh.
4. So we're in chapter 4 now. So this is about developing your cultural awareness for service providers and postpartum assessment of women. It talks about improving communication with newcomers, because some service providers can feel intimidated. We know that cultural practices can be different. Talking about certain things may not be, a normal practice for some cultures, and it's important that we're aware of that. There's a feeling guide for mothers. So if there's a language barrier or you aren't able to get interpreters, there's a whole page on feelings, and it's a great tool for kids, but it's also a great tool for women. So there's one that's shy. They may point to that and say, that's how I'm feeling. So that can introduce, that can give you an insight on how they're doing. There's a mental health assessment, and of course the Edinburgh postnatal assessment scale, which is a great tool. I know a lot of public health nurses have used it in our area at, I think, around the 6 to 8 week mark of postpartum. So yeah, and it's here, and it asks some of the great questions. Am I spending time with the baby? Am I reacting appropriately to the baby? And it gives them a chance to be really honest, and then you can take a look at this and work with the woman to get her the supports that she may need. Chapter 5 goes into intervention and treatments. This is for service providers only. There are no working sheets for moms or dads. This is a kind of an overview of the therapy principles, medication categories. Now, again, there may be some new information that's out there because the things change, and we know more about some of the prescriptions that are used. So it may be just it may be basic, but it's still quite good. And this sheet is like some, a couple of the therapies that are but we know now there's a lot more. There's emotion focused therapy that's not in there. There's CBT, there's there's lots of different ones, strength based, that kind of thing. So yeah, but it does give you an overview. So if the woman tells you that, oh, she's taking this group, it gives you the name to it, and then you can look it up yourself so that you're aware of what kind of things she may be learning or how she's learning it. Number 6, chapter 6 is another chapter that we use a lot. It's about helping women support their own recovery process. So often women may know that they may use a substance that they're not comfortable using it as much as they want. They may not understand whether, they may think they're addicted, but they may not be. They may think that that the only way to do it is cold turkey, but it may not. Sometimes it's helping them organize their own recovery plan, working from a harm reduction perspective, asking them their symptoms. How does your substance use affect you? Do you think your substance affects your parenting? And if so, how? It involves like the sheet here is now this is also about it. I didn't put this. I thought I used the substance one, but it isn't. This is also about anxiety, this chapter, and they show an example of what causes me some anxiety, like getting in an elevator, so it talks about exaggerating our like that, catastrophizing some of our thoughts. So this is a great tool to use too for women, and it helps them see their own progression of anxiety. So it can be there's some really good ones in there. There's tracking symptoms. There's a healthy thinking workshop, helps to reframe our thoughts and self-talk. helps them understand how they can connect to mental health services. And there's also a little section on if you're involved with family and children's services, and to, you know, have advocacy and help support and what that could mean, because that can cause a lot of fear. So, and recovery isn't just for substance use. Recovery is also feeling better about your mental health. So,
Maureen, there's a question, I think, for the worksheet from Rochelle.
Super.
Could it be used for emotional eating or any other behaviors that are
Absolutely
unhelpful?
Yeah. So a situation, so let's say, like, could you describe a situation, like when a woman says to you, when I'm stressed, I overeat. So, you know, you might start with saying, okay, I have this great worksheet. So what situation would trigger that for you? And she might say, you know, I have to go visit my parents or something, you know, whatever. And then you can explore that with her, the thought. So what thoughts come into your head? And then where do you feel this in your chest? Because I think a key to helping women understand their own mental health is where do they feel it in their chest? And so once they really get to know where they feel it, then they'll feel it instantly and they'll identify it right away. And that can help them, you know, prevent going further into that, you know, whether it's substance use or overeating, or could be gambling. It could be excessive exercise. There could be so many things, right? The addictions or you know, problematic coping can be a variety of things. It's not always like drinking or drugs, right? But it's important for us to help them, you know, see how the thought got carried away, or the thought went to this disaster, or the thought went to, you know, like we actually used this in group the other day, and one woman said, when my son gets sick with the flu, I always think he's going to die. And so we did the sheet with her in the group. It was great, and everybody kind of helped her. And you know, someone said, have you ever seen someone die from the flu? And she said, well, no. And so and has your son ever had the flu and recovered? Yes. So it helped her realize that her thought was, yes, a possibility. And we validated that for her, that yes, people do die of the flu, they get pneumonia, that kind of thing. But what is the likelihood of that? And when you spend a lot of energy worrying about that, it takes you away from having hope that your child's going to get better, and giving hope to him that don't worry, you're going to be over this in a couple of days. So it can be a great stepping stone for women, and it can be used for a variety of things. So yeah, overeating, anorexia, not severe anorexia, but you know, eating disorders for sure, substance use, smoking, cigarettes, like you know, if you're someone who's smoking a pack or more a day, for pregnant women, this is a great tool to say, you know, could we slow it down? Could we reduce the use? Could we delay, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, you know, whatever the women's experiencing, that's what's great about this toolkit. You can adapt this to anything that they're feeling or doing that's affecting their mental health, and you can be creative. So for sure, that was a great question.
There was a comment by Jennifer saying that she has one mom she works with that has issues over collection of pets, I guess having a lot of pets, which eventually leads to budget issues.
Yeah.
She believes it helps her mental health, but is recognizing that sometimes it does the opposite.
That's right. And hoarding is a huge issue for a lot of women and men and families. And hoarding can be very complicated because that fear, especially if they've come from, you know, extreme poverty as children, where they went without a lot of things. We know that they start to collect things because there's always a fear they may not have it. So I don't need just one table, I need 5 tables. I don't need just, you know, I get comfort from a cat, but I'll think how much comfort I'd get if I had 5 cats or 10 cats. And we see that, and we see what happens is, you know, family and children's services get involved when a woman is pregnant or with a small child, and they go in the house and there's multiple animals, and then they say, sorry, you have to get rid of these animals in order to keep your child. And that can be, you know, so stressful for people to release their animals. And it's not that simple. Where are you going to take these animals? Often you have to pay to you know, give up an animal, surrender an animal. So yeah, it's when you hear a woman say, oh, there's a cat, I want another cat, this would be the time to enter into this kind of thing and say, so what makes you want this cat? What are you feeling? What's your experience? What's triggering you into thinking you need another animal to help with soothing or, controlling some of your anxiety. So yeah, it's an interesting, topic for sure. And mental health isn't, I think what I've learned, especially since COVID now, mental health looks different for everybody. And we used to think it was, schizophrenia or bipolar or these things. And now we also know that trauma is where it starts. And we need to work from that trauma-informed approach. And that's what this toolkit is about as well. And helping women to identify, instead of us telling them how they feel or what they have. It isn't really about the diagnosis. It's about how that diagnosis is impacting your life and what can we do to reduce the harm or reduce that impact for you. So yeah, and there's like so many different things that are considered mental health, anxiety or mental health issues now. So I was just working with a 15-year-old the other day, and she asked me if I knew that borderline personality disorder was actually a result of a chemical imbalance caused by trauma. And she asked me if I knew that. And I said, well, I did know that. And I said, so I'd like, so tell me about your experience with this. And she was so clear on understanding her own mental health. I was really impressed because she was just 15 and pregnant and alone and homeless. So, but yet she understood that she had a mental health disorder, but she also understood that it wasn't her fault. And that was, that's great. And that's more and more counselors are starting to work from that trauma-informed approach, which is just so beneficial. So.
Maureen, Melissa says in the chat, I think a lot of people confuse mental health with mental illness as they are actually different. When someone hears mental health, stigma makes them link it directly to mental illness and kind of close up on opening about their experiences.
That's right. Yeah, very true. Very true. And it's because we all have mental health. We all have, parts of our mental health is good and parts of our mental health is not good. And that's where this toolkit, the stronger we can, the more self-care we do, the more we, have strong relationships with people, we know that is going to have positive effects. So you're right. And although poor mental health can lead to a mental health diagnosis, and often anxiety is a diagnosis, and many people have anxiety and they're not even clinically diagnosed. So yeah, it's you're right. We have to be careful that women don't automatically think because I feel a little bit of anxiety here that and that's why we don't give this book to women, because we don't, anxiety is part of this diagnosis. We don't want women to self-diagnose. So that's a good point. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
No, I'm not seeing any more questions or comments at this time.
So chapter 7 is a chapter that it just talks about different initiatives that have happened in Canada. It's not really a chapter you're going to really look at too much or use too much, but might give you some ideas for things. But I think this might be a good time to take a break. And then when we come back, I'd like to talk about some of the women that maybe, or men that we work with, and how we could use this toolkit. And I'll give you an example of a woman I work with, and and what sheets I've used. Does that sound good to people? Would everyone like a break?
That sounds good to me. I'm ready for that coffee.
Coffee? So does 15 minutes, is that too long, or is that good for people?
I say it sounds good.
People are agreeing. Sounds good. So
all right,
how about we, like 11 o'clock.
Okay, sounds good.
11 o'clock. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I am here if you need me, Maureen.
Oh, thanks, Sydney. Did you get your coffee?
I do. It's
Good.
delicious. I realized I maybe could have stopped the recording during the break, but people can just fast forward through it.
That's right. I was just looking at Melissa's post in the chat here. When I was
Mhm.
going through the book, it suggested the format as a group series to be 6 to 8 participants, 2 hours weekly for 8 weeks. Yeah.
She's responding to a question from Rochelle. Do you see that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. I don't know that it would be, I think it would be a bit overwhelming in a workshop myself. I think it might be too much information at once, whereas it's better to, I think, use it as a pace, like a pacing. But it depends. I guess we're going to talk a bit about how to use it in group work too.
Right.
That was a nice little break. I was able to go check on my families and see if they needed anything, and I'm back.
There you go. The roles of mom. I really noticed the difference. I have a new grandbaby who just the love of my life, and Leopoldo is his name, and it's just, you know, I'm just free to love him and play with him. I don't have that responsibility for him, and I really recognize that it's so different than when you're a parent, right? It's hard to just enjoy it all because you're worrying, you have so much to do.
How old is he?
He is 1. Yeah, he is just turned 1.
Lovely.
His name is Leopoldo Alejandro Russell. His mom is from Venezuela, so he's learning Spanish at home and English and a bit of French too. So yeah, he's a doll though, and he's starting to get his little personality. And I'm pretty goofy with him, and you can see the you know, he's starting to recognize that I can be silly with him. So he's like, he was silly the other day right off the bat, and it was really fun. Like my son said, he doesn't do that with anyone else, and so that's nice.
So many good things to come. I can't hear it early on, and Melissa probably can relate. We sign up a lot of grandparents to the Keon because it seems like they do come out to use it for quality time. As grandparents, we're very cognizant about how play and just uninterrupted play is so important. When we're parents, as probably the contrast, we're so focused on getting the meals on the table and cleaning the house, and we forget about just uninterrupted play, you know, and just coming to the center. And right now we're busier because right now there's fires all around us. There's a huge one. I think Elliott Lake is soon going to be, Melissa, on evacuation readiness because of that big fire. I think it's 4,000 hectares now, just of Sudbury, just above Massey and heading towards Elliott Lake area. So
no.
The outside air is just like, we can't play outside. You smell smoke in the air constantly.
Yeah, we have a fire near Ottawa and Calabogie, and we couldn't believe it. And then of course the Quebec fires too. So, and then Nova Scotia, and then they showed pictures of New York City yesterday that was just wild. And it is hard on little kids, right? And I know I have a brother with lung disease, and I keep telling him to stay put. All right, so I think everyone should be back by now. What do you think, Sydney?
Sure. Sorry, I just had a sneeze coming on.
Oh, there you go. Look at the sun. Well, not too much sun today, but maybe where you are.
I think we're good.
All right. So again, you know, I say moms we work with because this is called the Mothers Mental Health Toolkit, but there are pages for dads, and I have a list somewhere around my desk on which pages are for dads, because I'm starting to work more with dads and developing, the Making the Connection group with forefathers. So definitely want to be able to use some of these sheets and the binders that we provide. So I think it's really good that I forget who brought that up, but it's something we need to be, cognitive for sure. So there's one, oh yeah, so first we just go into, again, some of the people that we work with, as you all know, their vulnerabilities and their risk determinants can be barriers to getting support and help. So poverty, low level of support, family conflict, domestic violence, trauma, unresolved trauma, housing, homelessness, the couch surfing, we see that a lot more. Transportation limitations, so important to somehow offer transportation support, whether it be bus tickets, taxi chips, or for us, we have a driving company out here and we have cab services, but we cannot get over how far women travel to our programs by foot and with strollers, broken strollers. So always keep that in mind, because that is such a barrier. The education deficits, realizing women they all can't read, or men can't read. And when we make assumptions they can, at times I've done it. Unemployment, a lot of families I work with are on ODSP or OW, and may work a couple of, maybe a few, 1 day a week or something. And of course, they've increased the limit in Ontario for how much you can earn, which is wonderful. Previous mental health issues or disorders, and of course the family history, addictions in the family, violence in the family, those kind of things. So all those things play into our risk determinants. Possible health problems such as, the mental health diagnosis pre-pregnancy. Sometimes during pregnancy, women have to go off their medications. So that's something to, that's a good question to ask if you are working with a woman, a new woman that you don't know her history. Ask her, has she had to stop taking any medication? Sometimes we ask what medications you're on, but we don't ask what kind of medications have you had to go off. And I think it's an important question, because they sometimes are very distraught about going off their medications. And there are new medications now that are safe for women. We don't tell them which ones to ask for, but we say, talk to your doctor, talk to a pharmacist, get a couple of names and ask your doctor if that's something that would work for you if you are struggling since coming off your medications. So there's post-traumatic stress disorder. There's, the concurrent disorders, attachment disturbances, lots of different things or possibilities. So this, I'm sorry, I'll get busy with that. This is a woman I've worked with for many, many years. I started working with her 20 years ago. Or 22 years ago. She was one of the first women I worked with. She was very young when she had her baby. She did very well. She was married. She had lots of friends. She had not had a good childhood. We knew that. But later, there's some of her coping skills didn't work so well. Her husband left her. She started dating other people. She ended up in a very bad relationship and lost custody of 2 of her children. And then down the road, she went on to meet another partner, and she didn't have custody of any of her children at this point. They were with the fathers of her previous relationships. I think there were 2, and that was 3 of her children. And then she did use drugs, but not really heavy drugs. And then one night she was at a place and someone said, this is her word, she told me that they told her you could have the best sex you've ever had in your life if you tried crack cocaine. In her words, she said, we tried it, her partner and herself, and they spent the next 5 years searching for it. And her life went from pretty good to quite awful. She was incarcerated. She had 3 strokes. She's now paralyzed. She had a child that she didn't know she was pregnant with, and it had cerebral palsy when it was born. So it has been adopted, and she's very grateful for that. She is now clean. She's on methadone. very disabled, and she's raising a child on her own, a 3-year-old. Her partner is incarcerated and will be for the next, I think, another 5 years for, armed robbery for drugs. So anyways, she uses a bit of cannabis, but not, sometimes it can be a problem, but, we've worked with her on that. She had a very traumatic childhood. She has experienced domestic violence her whole life. Even the partner she's with now, like her, she still considers that she's with this partner that is incarcerated. But she'll say things like, well, he never hit me. But he is emotionally and financially abusive. And she, was sending him fair bit of money to jail. There's still that link there. She does have difficulty in parenting. We've actually discovered recently, since actually I wrote this, that she is probably does have FASD. So, she is on the spectrum of FASD. So she doesn't have a lot of supports. She is very attached to me, and have to constantly keep in check some of her boundaries while working with her. So the positive things about this mother is she has some great attitude, like really good attitude. She's one of the most positive people I've ever met. She seeks out support for anything. She always will listen. She doesn't always incorporate. She'll say, but I really love him and I don't want to hurt his feelings by not giving him that candy or that kind of thing. So it can be frustrating as a worker to see her not be able to incorporate some of the things that, I've spent a lot of time working with her, but, her intentions are good. And it's really, you really just have to go with the baby steps, which is, part of our work. She wants to do better. She wants to be a good mother, and she's forever grateful. She'll, she always says, thank you. She always says, what would I do without you? She, wants to do better. And, she accepts challenging. I know her well enough where I can challenge her and say, well, we've talked about this. We know that, your son has a lot of problems with his teeth. So you continually, feeding him sugar, isn't in his best interest. And in fact, although you think it's a sign of love, it's what would really be loving and, really good parenting is brushing his teeth and reducing the sugar that he intakes. So, I'm lucky that I can have that kind of relationship with her. I've done group with her. She's not really a group ready kind of person because she has trouble sitting down. She has trouble concentrating, and she tends to be a bit of a wanderer, so can be distractful in the group. So group work with her isn't as effective as one-on-one. And but this Mother's Mental Health Toolkit, although she is somewhat illiterate, she can read some basic stuff, and if I read it with her, it really helps a lot. So some of the pages that I've used, get caught up here, is, so there's a page on body health, and I have it here, so I'm just going to tell you about it. Yeah, so this one is daily, weekly, monthly, or once in a while. Do I suffer from headaches, tiredness, dizziness, breathing problems, my heart racing, muscle aches and pains? And it's interesting because the one thing she never disclosed to me was that she was diabetic, and that she actually doesn't check her sugars. And so one of the things she talked a lot about was dizziness, that I suffer dizziness a lot and I feel confused, or I feel like, so I said to her, have you ever been checked for diabetes? And she said, I am diabetic. So she did not have any support around her diabetes at all. None. She was just using insulin when she thought she needed it. I was shocked at at the lack of instruction she had. So, but trying to get her to meet with the diabetes, the team has been quite challenging. She, for some reason, she wants to avoid it. And, but, she has agreed. Now she has the monitor on her arm, so she's at least checking her sugars more, but it is still very difficult for her to get her in there for support. The doctor appointment one is great. It is, get it here with me. It's, preparing for my medical appointment for my child. tell the doctor practitioner about my child's health. Example, he pulls his right ear and cries somehow. So it's things like this. And it was really sad one time. I had a mom fill out a list of what she wanted to talk to her doctor about. And he just said, he said to her, don't you ever bring that sheet in again. I don't have time for that. And I actually called the doctor's office and said, you know, we advocate for women to do this so that they are not wasting your time and they come in organized and you know, and talk about the important things in their life. And so I said, I really would encourage the doctor to, you know, maybe take a look at that sheet and realize that it actually will save him time in the long run, or her, because they're meeting the needs of the client. So I think lists going into a doctor are great thing, because for this mother in particular, she forgets. So we've actually put in place now, because she goes for treatments because of her paralysis, we've put in place a volunteer who used to be a volunteer birth companion, is now a volunteer home support person. And she actually goes to the medical appointments with her so she can help advocate for some of the things she needs. And out of the first session, mom ended up with home care. So it's really successful. And this sheet really helped. You know, exploring your substance use with her. A couple times when I would show up, or she would show up to meet somebody, she was, you know, very high when she would show up. So, you know, again, harm reduction, if that's what it took for her to show up, then we're okay with that. But we want to make sure that her, you know, we need to explore it sometimes with her and how is it affecting her parenting. And one of the things that was discovered was that she does use edibles, and the edibles were left out. And because of how difficult the edible package was to open, she was leaving the package open. So I got her a lockbox, and I said to her, you know, that's reportable. If we see this open, we have to report this. So we made the call together, and she we told her about the lockbox, and I was very clear with her that I expected her to use that lockbox, and that this was a non-negotiable thing, that as part of her substance use, she needs to protect her child from ingesting, and so far so good. So so good things come out of this, right? Good things when we talk about substance use, when we talk about things, then we're actually in their home, and we can, if we're talking about it, we can say, so I noticed there's a package of gummies over there. And, you know, and because her child wasn't home, I said, did you just get those out? Or, so, you know, this can lead to, you know, more assessment in that. Who I am is a great, who, you know, how do my friends describe me? I think is one of the questions. Let's see here. Yeah. What would my friends say is the best thing about me? My favorite thing to do as a child was, I spend a lot of time doing my pet peeve is, I admire, I am proud of, I think it's unfair when, and this is a great tool for them to understand, you know, what makes them tick, maybe their value system. In the future, I would like to, and then you can find out things. So if mom says in the future, I'd like to become a mechanic, you know, you might say, well, did you know that there's you can get into a free course on basic mechanics at this place? And so maybe we could get childcare for your child, because like we advocated for this mother to have 3 days childcare, so that she could, because she has difficulty preparing meals and that. So we have a volunteer that works with her and prepares some meals that are healthier, but harder to do when her son is around. So yeah, so things like that. And you know, encouraging her to, she works one of those days because she feels better about herself, that she's, you know, contributing financially. And the things she'd like to change about herself was reducing the methadone. And so we worked on that with her, but we found that it actually, she ended up having more body pain because of it. And so her doctor at the methadone clinic was really great. And he just said, you know, because of your strokes, you have a lot of body pain. The methadone's actually helping you with pain control. So she felt better about using the methadone after that. So yeah, so things like that can come out of, you know, this, the support map, which we talked about, who her support peoples are. She has that on her fridge. Power and control wheel. We talked about that with her partner being in jail, and how he tries to control her somewhat with her sending him money. And so I said, so your son is going without something so your partner can have spending money while incarcerated. And, you know, we explored about, was that really her responsibility, or was that a sense of is that his own? He has family, he has friends. Maybe he could figure that out for himself. So she's since, I'm not sure that she ever did stop, but I think she did reduce the amount. We also talk about when he's released, what's that going to look like for her, because she thought he might be released on parole, but he wasn't. So yeah, so that's some of the tools I use with her. And we talked a little bit about group work. I'm trained in the connections group. We call it Making the Connection because our program is called Connections. So in that, we use this is a group for women who are experiencing unhealthy relationships or violence. They use substance to cope, and they're parenting children 0 to 6. This is the same group that we're going to be starting with fathers, and we will use sheets as well. And again, we'll have to maybe change some of the wording. We use the power and control wheel when we talk about healthy relationships. We've added this is, I think, a 5-week group, 5 to 6 week. We've added 10 weeks, so we have a whole week on self-care. We use quite a few pages out of the self-care section, sleeping, body health, doctor appointments, that kind of thing, fueling up. We talk about who am I. We have the support map. We almost use out of every chapter. We use this book in our group work. So we don't actually run a group using this book as the, and I'm not sure that would be as effective, because if you were just to go through week after week and do, let's say, a 6-week group, that's a lot of sheets for women or people to comprehend. I think it might be better for the service provider to introduce the sheets when they see that there's an opportunity that they would be received well and actually used. So, but I'm interested in hearing people's thoughts on that. And if anyone has a client or a participant they'd like to talk about and how they could use this book, I'll do my best to come up with some ideas on which pages. Would anyone like to share that?
Hi, Maureen. Well, while people are thinking about that, I have a question. I also wanted to let you know that Melissa posted a really great resource in the chat with a link to an online resource by Families Canada called Safety and Financial Empowerment for Women from a Trauma-Informed Lens. So that looks like a great resource, and that's in the chat. And
thank you.
Melissa talked about connecting with their local employment connections, working together by asking them to send us people who are new to the area or unaware of the resources. I send parents who want to get into the workforce and are experiencing barriers. So anyway, some good discussion.
Yeah.
But my question for you, while people are contemplating their questions, is would you, you have the power and control wheel on page 103. Yeah. And you mentioned it a few times in your presentation as a go-to resource. How do you use that in either a group or a one-on-one? Can you give some examples?
Sure.
What that looks like?
I've worked a lot with abused women. I've run a lot of different groups. I run a group called Breaking the Cycle with when we've used this a lot. Assertiveness, sexual assault, lots of different scenarios. We've used this in different groups and one-on-one, because I think the key, I was thinking about on the break, the difference of, with men and women being abused and how we identify it, and how it seems to be such a hot topic when we talk about are men abused as well, which we know they are. But sometimes I think the difference is, and again, I'm not an expert, and this is my own humble opinion and from what I've experienced, but I know things are changing, and I know we're starting to recognize that this is more possible. But when we're talking about abusive men per se that are this is a predator man who is controlling his partner through his behavior. This is where this wheel comes in. So it isn't about this isn't a guy that's just losing his temper or having a bad day. This is someone who systematically controls his partner through different methods. And one of the methods is coercion and threats. So so that's on here. So we would say to the woman, like she would say, you know, does that crazy making thing. Like I worked with a woman once who said, he changes things around in our house and he denies doing it. No, that is purposeful. That is trying to make someone feel crazy, right? That is crazy making. And that is that, you know, that is that,
gaslighting, I guess
it's the that's the word.
called.
Thank you, Sydney. Yeah, it is that
yeah.
gaslighting. It's like, what are you talking about? I never moved that. And it's purposely trying to create doubt in her mind of her own stability. So this is and this is where so this wheel is when you're dealing with women that are really controlled, who are not allowed to work, who may be tracked, who may be you know, stripped down when they get home from being out. Where have you been? And he's checking every part of her. Those kind of things, those extreme things. This is where this wheel can really help her understand that this is purposeful. So intimidation, making her afraid by using certain looks. I had a woman once tell me he would just point his finger at her, and that meant to her, I could kill you if I wanted to kill you. He never touched her. He never physically touched her. She was totally afraid of death. And statistics show men that don't physically abuse their wife, but when that woman leaves, she's at the greatest risk of being killed. So intimidation, using looks, actions, or gestures, smashing things or punching holes in the wall right beside their head, right? Abusing pets, which is, you know, really common. Making her watch while she abuses pets, making children watch while they abuse pets. You know, having a weapon on the wall, having weapons laying around the house, having knives just laying on tables beside wherever he's sitting. It's even though he may not ever pick that weapon up or use it, he's sending a signal like, I'm in control of you and you better not make me pick that up. Emotional abuse, putting her down, making her feel bad about herself, you know, calling her names like the C word. That is very typical of abusive men. They use that word all the time. And it's an important thing for women to understand that, you know, that isn't a typical, that's actually a red flag for her. So we teach about red flags. We use this power and control wheel in that, because women don't understand. Like they really think I'm losing my mind. I'm just not cleaning the house properly. I didn't put his shoes where he told me I had to put them. I didn't have supper ready. The kids weren't clean enough. He likes them really clean when I get home. But we all know, like, sometimes your kids are dirty, and that's just, you wipe their face and get them ready for dinner. And it shouldn't be something that, because we didn't wash our children properly, it shouldn't mean that we're afraid. So fear is a big part. If a woman you're talking to is feeling afraid or fearful, this is the time to kind of bring this out, you know, and ask the questions. Does he ever make light of the abuse? Does he not take her concerns seriously, saying the abuse didn't really happen? It wasn't really that bad. Stop being a baby. Stop whining. Stop making a mountain out of nothing. Can't you be more positive? You know, I had a bad day. Can't you understand? I have a hard job, right? It's that minimizing and saying things like, you know, if you just had the kids clean, or if you just keep those kids quiet, none of this would have happened. If you had not been on the phone with your mother when I got home, none of this would have happened, right? Using children, making them feel guilty about their kids, using their children often when they're separated, using children to delay messages, you know, using a child to hand over a child support check or something like that, putting kids in the middle. So when you use this tool, you're showing that you're demonstrating to her that he's trying to control you, and that's important for them to understand. There's a part about male privilege, treating her like a servant. You know, women are in the kitchen. Women make the meals. Women do the childbearing. Women do the child caring. That's not my job. I've worked all day. I'm not playing with the kids. I'm not taking them to the park. That's not my job. That's your job. And get my supper, you know. And it sounds kind of funny. Like, do men actually talk to women like this? Some of the stories I've heard, I tell you, I can't even, when I worked as a shelter worker in the shelter, I was shocked by some of the stuff I heard. And I actually had to leave the shelter. I just couldn't look at men the same way. So I chose to be more of a group facilitator where I can teach about it. And but we know that for some women, the control is just it's I got to get home. I got to be on time. I can't be late. Oh my goodness. I had a woman once tell me that she would look out the window, and by the way he got out of the car, she could tell what kind of night she was in for. And sometimes she would call 911 before he even entered the house because of the way he walked or the way he held his hands. So, you know, those are extreme, but it's more common than we think it is. And we are working with those women and we just don't know it. Because sometimes when I used to work at the shelter, I'd go into the shelter for work and I couldn't believe that a mom that was in my group at my job here was sitting in the shelter, or I was bringing her in that night. Like, and I had no idea there was violence in the home, and I'm pretty experienced in it. So, but yeah, this wheel is great. It talks about, you know, emotional abuse, calling her names, making her think she's crazy, playing mind games, humiliating her, and then making her feel guilty about feeling sad. And, you know, we run a group, in our group, we talk about the cycle of abuse. I don't know if everyone's heard of that. It's something I really encourage you to look up. It was Lenore Walker developed this in the early 70s. She interviewed hundreds of women, and they all seem to show a cycle. All relationships have a cycle, friendships, good marriages, bad marriages. Everybody has a cycle in relationships, but the cycle in an abusive is very distinctful. There's that honeymoon where they fall in love. They, you know, he's good to her, he's kind to her. And this is the person that she falls in love with. And then the tension happens, and it can take a long time for that to happen. It can actually happen the same day of the first date. Like it's a crazy cycle. But the tension might be milk gets spilled and suddenly his reaction is kind of over the top, and you're like, oh, that's odd. What's going on there? And then it can lead to him storming out, or it could lead to violence. It can lead to something else. And then it goes into the makeup. Sometimes it can be, let's just have sex and make it better. And then we'll go back into that honeymoon. And the women are left going, what just happened? I've never seen the side of him. What's going on? Often the blowout can be a sexual assault. And women say, because they say after the blow, they don't want to have sex. They've just gone through something that's horrendous. They're afraid. They're in disbelief. And he's saying, let's make up. Why are you being like this? Why can't you let anything go? And this is where women often feel a lot of shame because they give in and have the sex so that it can go back into that honeymoon. And it also protects their children. So women living with violent relationships can be very difficult for them to you know, keep the kids safe, happy, and keep their own struggles. And then they end up living with so much anxiety that their parenting it becomes the bare minimum. Sometimes it's go to bed. You know, dad's on his way home. I'm sorry I didn't feed you, but we'll have a big breakfast tomorrow. And you know, that isn't something that we need to shame women for. This is something that is their reality, and for these children as well. So yeah, so we use this power and control a lot. And the other good part about these kind of tools is it's not us saying it, because, you know, we could sit here and preach all we want to people, but when a woman sees it, that there's a book on this, that this is something that's actually, you know, a tool, they kind of say, oh, so it's not just me, because that's the important piece. We need to let women know they're not alone in that. That's the power of group work with abused women too, is that everyone at this table, oh, my partner did that to me too. Oh, that partner. Oh, yes. You know, he did that to me as well. And, you know, the most powerful moment, and I don't want to trigger people, but one of the most powerful moment I ever had in a group with women was a woman said that she had been branded by him. And I was like, branded? And 3 women pulled up their sleeves and showed their branding. So for that woman that announced that, she had never told anybody. And there was other women that said, he did that to me too. So that commonality, and that's where these can come in handy. And there's one around physical abuse on the next page. Then there's one about the sexual abuse, denying or blaming, that kind of thing. So there's different versions of the wheel, but it is a great tool because it's very explicit. Sorry, I can keep going on and on.
Well, no, that's great. There's both Rochelle and Melissa have put little stories in the chat they might want to expand on. But before we open that, Rochelle asked if there was a resource about signs leading up to domestic abuse.
Yeah, I think it's that it's the tension, right? It's the It's that because, some women say the cycle didn't happen for years. Often the cycle begins the bad cycle, like the cycle of abuse begins when a woman is pregnant. So if you're, have a relationship for 5 or 6 years, say, and it depends on a woman's experience. If she grew up in a violent home, she may think what she's living is a dream. He never hits me, sure, he calls me names sometimes, but I don't really feel that afraid of him. And he's a good provider. So they kind of minimize, or they'll go into the next relationship, say, well, this guy doesn't hit me, or this guy doesn't call me the C word, or this guy, at least he works, right? So we define domestic violence differently, but usually it's often, most of the time, it's during pregnancy when the focus is coming off him and onto her more, and to her unborn child. And she can't, she doesn't have the energy to devote to him. So he may start to feel a little bit of neglect and losing that control over, he is the center of attention. Violence can be quite extensive when a woman is pregnant, and especially when she begins to show. That is a time to always ask those questions. So how are things going with your partner? Can you tell me a little bit about your relationship? So what happens when you guys fight? Can you share that a little bit with me? What does that look like for you? Does he ever call you names? And just be casual with it, and then don't be shy. Like, and it's okay. Someone said to me the other day, do you have a poker face when you interview women? And you don't have to have a poker face. It's okay for you to show emotion. It's okay for you to say, wow, I'm sorry, I know you can see my face flushing. I've never heard that before. I'm really sorry you experienced that. Can we talk a little bit about that, right? So you don't have to be stoic, because that's the thing. Sometimes you hear things, I'm sure you already have heard things you've never heard before. So
yeah, that's so important. Now, like I say, Rochelle and Melissa, Teresa, like, do either of you, any of you want to speak more to your example, or does anybody else want to either ask Maureen a question or have an example from your own work? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, let's start a discussion for sure.
And if people want to come on camera too, you're welcome to do that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So it's Rachel. So I guess with my example, like abuse is more than just physical abuse. It can also be financial abuse.
That's right.
And for this example, the father was very manipulative and basically told her that she could have signed herself into a mental ward, right?
Yeah.
So that is very manipulative.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that could very much make a woman feel like she's crazy.
Yeah.
And like another person here was talking about, or was it you, where the man would move things around and deny it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like other examples is like keeping like all the cupboards door open.
Yeah.
Opening them all up and making him and not admitting to doing that.
Yes.
So, so then it makes it feel like she's going kind of crazy. So yeah, very psychological and emotional, like spiritual. It robs a person from a healthy
life. That's right.
Their life.
It's a really good point. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I didn't mention that, it's the types of abuse. There's, we work from a perspective of 8. Some people say there's 12, but, financial abuse, religious abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's psychological abuse. So emotional is the heart, you're a loser, maybe name calling, whereas psychological is the gaslighting, where you're opening all the cupboard doors, or they play the music really loud and you're like, you can't think straight, and he's like, what are you talking about? Or playing the music so low, saying you should get your ears checked, right? It's that different, it plays with your mind. So yeah. And some women only experience one type of abuse, and so they don't identify that as abuse. So there is a good sheet that we work with at Lanark County Interval House at my other job, but I've used it here as well. It's a, like when a woman comes in the shelter, they go through the types of abuse and they say, could you highlight anything you've experienced? And when women look at that, they're shocked because they didn't even know. And often we're the first step for women to understand that they may be in an abusive relationship. And we're all capable of abusive behavior. We're all capable of yelling. We're all capable of hitting. We're all capable of this kind of behavior. But if it's purposeful, that's different, right? So opening the cupboard doors just to play with someone's mind, that's a little different than just say, having a bad day and maybe raising your temper, right? So yeah, so sometimes we are the first step toward helping women or men understand that you may be in an abusive relationship. So that's a really good point. So
I do
financial
have
abuse
an-
is
Yeah.
common.
I do have another thing I wanted to mention about sexual abuse. Sometimes women may think that it's only, forced like rape or like, but it's also when a woman feels obligated. So it's like
Absolutely.
it becomes a forced yes. And so she's putting herself in a disempowered position too. Yeah.
That's a really good point because, when a man is hounding you for sex 24/7 and a woman gives in, that's actually not consent. That's like she needs to sleep. She needs to get up to go to work tomorrow. She wants to keep things calm because her children are sleeping. Yeah, consent is something that, is always worth talking about. And what does consent really mean? And you're right. Because I think it was 1985 when it became illegal to rape your wife, right? So this isn't, a lot of people still think that, well, what happens behind closed doors is between a married couple, and that's just simply not true. And women, and you hear people talk about that, well, that's part of a relationship. Yeah, that's part of a healthy relationship, and it's part of and it could be, but it might not be. If someone decides, what, I'm not doing that anymore and I don't want to have that, they are allowed to make that choice. And we are in charge of our own bodies, and we should be. And so that's a really great point. And consent is an easy thing to bring up so let's have like at a drop-in group, with pregnant women. Let's talk about consent. What does consent mean to you? And because they may not understand, like you said, that hounding somebody or giving into sex just to keep things calm or keep him calm is actually not consent. And that could be the first thing they realize. And I really do find that when we talk about sexual abuse, that's when a lot of light bulbs go on, because women have no idea that is abuse. So that's a great point. And we need to be comfortable talking about these things with the women we serve, because they're vulnerable women, right?
Yes. And one more thing, sorry.
Yeah. No, don't be sorry at all. It's great.
Body shaming as well. When a man just talks and discusses towards his partner's body, gaining weight, or like, giving how your body looks like after giving birth.
Yes.
Like that is also very awful.
And it's very traumatic for women to carry those images, comments about stretch marks or comments about, well, I hope you're going to lose that weight. Like, how long is that going to take? Or you're not stopping now, are you? Those kind of comments. And yes, and it's very hard for women because, our bodies do change, and really a healthy partner celebrates that. And it's like, wow, look what you did, look what you went through to have this beautiful child come into our life. That's what it's supposed to be about. And I think a lot of women don't realize there are men out there that do talk like that, who just say, I love stretch marks. That's great, right? It just shows what a beautiful woman you are, right? I mean, and that's the problem with women that are abused at all. They don't know that there are men out there, and they don't believe there are men like that. And so we have to give them hope. And so we have to really teach them what you're experiencing is not okay, and it's a crime, right? So good. That's really important for us to be comfortable talking about sexual abuse and consent and their experiences. So absolutely. Anybody else?
Maureen, I see
Yeah.
Jennifer has her hand up.
Great. Hi, Jennifer.
I managed to fix my camera, so.
Yay.
Yeah, so my example earlier, and this was many years ago when our center used to allow for visitation visits to occur in our center, and we really never thought anything of it, but we provide snacks, or sometimes we provide lunch and learns or meals. And the partner of this one young lady with her children, whenever we would offer, he'd speak for them all the time, say, no, we don't need that, we're good. We brought our own snacks for the kids, we ate at home with it. But later I discovered he was controlling her food intake. Like, sometimes I would look at her face and she would not say anything, but she, and of course, this is many years ago and I didn't have as much training or anything like that. So I just slowly started to put out, like, I guess we call them charcuterie boards now, but we would do like multiple snack things, and I would make plates and I'd go around and give to even the adults. And I think it really came to me when I offered her the thing and she looked at him almost like she's giving this, am I allowed
to eat it? That is exactly what
saw
she's
it
doing.
all over her face. And I'm like, oh, there's plenty, don't worry, he can have some too. And like, just trying. But then later she started coming when it wasn't visit days and coming. So we were able to guide, like, again, I didn't know back then, you shouldn't really say you got to leave him, but I was younger without the training. And she was like, yes, I'm sorry about that. And she has shared with me and he was blaming it on their financial situation. We can't afford to spend that much on food. And so blah, blah. But I would say, but if you're hungry, eat, there's lots here. It's not your budget, it's our budget. And if I can feed you. And so she started to come almost every day, even without her kids. And I would say, you don't have to have your kids to come here. If you are hungry, come, I will feed you. And she actually started to look healthier and feel healthier, like she was eating nutritious food and able to come. And I never turned her away. They subsequently never got their kids back. And down the line, they eventually did split. Like, I think she realized of everything that was going on. But in retrospect, these trainings for us are so important to be able to talk, because if I had known back then what I knew now, I probably would have approached it differently. And
sounds like you approached it pretty good though. So
but the outcome, because it did get like, I always worry, and I know it's not on us, but I always worry that what might be happening once we expose them to this new way of thinking, that this is financial abuse if he controls it all and you're not even allowed to whatever. And then sometimes you'll hear about, well, I went home and tried out some of my newfound skills and then he beat me up, or he. So that I find that I know it's not my fault, but I guess I still feel so much empathy that I just like, I don't know.
Oh, that's a really great point, Jennifer. And it's interesting because, we're never responsible for someone else's actions. So we're never responsible for abuse, either is she. And it's women to plant the seed, teach them what it is. That is financial abuse. But in the same sense, you can also say, I really encourage you to be careful about being assertive with your partner. This isn't information I want you to go home and share with him. I want you to keep that to yourself. I want you just to observe it and see what that means for you. But I really encourage you to be careful and safe and not be assertive with your partner. I teach assertiveness groups, and we always say you cannot be assertive with an abusive partner. And it's interesting about the food. Yeah.
And I always encourage them, if they're even slightly on the radar of abuse, to have, who are your trusted circle? Who is somebody, include me in your trusted circle. I will take your call day or night, because we're a small community, but I can introduce you to the Métis social worker, or the have a plan, because you never know if there's little red flags, just like what you said, think about it, observe it. Only you can make that decision, but let's have a little plan for you. Who can you?
If there's violence, it's important to have a safety plan. There's lots of examples of safety planning on the internet that you can, but safety planning is the key. If you hear of a woman who wants to leave an abusive relationship, find out how you can get with her alone to come up with a safety plan, or find someone who can do a safety plan with her. That's imperative, because we know the most dangerous time for a woman is when she's leaving. And it's interesting, it's really about our observation. And good observation that you notice, like, she's not eating when they come. Interesting how he always says they don't need any food. And it's like, sometimes men will control their medication. We can't afford you to take insulin 3 times a day, so we're going to let you take it twice a day. And it's really just a way of containing her her physical ability to do things, sometimes keeping her hungry. She's not feeling well most of the time then, right? Or a woman will be like, they'll control the budget, so you're only allowed $100 for shopping, and so she'll feed her children before she'll feed herself. So yeah, really good observations. And that's where really understanding different types of abuse, like someone had said, the financial piece where, oh, I earn a living, but I have to hand over my check to my husband. I have to give all my money to him, and he gives me an allowance, even though she's the breadwinner, right? So things like that, listen carefully for, and that's when you can say, have you ever thought about that maybe you should be in charge of your own money? How do you feel about handing your check over to him? Is that something that you agree with, or is that something? And sometimes they say, yeah, I'm really bad with money, and it's all good, and if I need more money, I can always get it. So it's not an abuse thing, but it's you clarifying to make sure. So really good. That's great.
And there are
and
some
encouraging
partners,
her to come in alone.
Because I've worked with a lady too, where there are some partners that do the opposite about the medication, and they over medicate them to keep them in a certain frame of reference, or just sabotage their sobriety, sabotage their.
Absolutely.
You're the alcoholic. I can still drink beer. This is my house too. I'm gonna drink, or I'm gonna do my cannabis or whatever. And that woman is really trying hard to stay away from it. So, and then she's having to feel like she's making a choice between keeping him there in her sobriety. And we can't make that choice for her, but it can be very confusing and very difficult.
Well, one time I was in a group, and we were talking about, using, and a woman, someone had criticized her because she drank with her partner. And I had said to this worker, I said, sometimes women drink with their partner to get rid of some of that alcohol, because if he drinks too much alcohol, it intensifies things. Alcohol is never a reason for abuse, because we know men that become clean still abuse. Eventually they'll go back to the abuse with or without alcohol or drugs. But women sometimes use to reduce the amount of substance the partner uses. So you're right. They have no choice but to be using because they have to. That's how they keep safe. So absolutely. And sometimes it's about, if you have children in the house and your partner wants you to drink with him, she drinks with him to keep things calm, right? And it's a game for women. It's not a game, but it's a skill for women to stay safe. And it becomes this, okay, if I do this, this equals that. And so it's and one thing I want to suggest to people, I don't know, when people do intakes, I used to, if a dad came with a mom, we'd do the intake together. But now I always say, I'm sorry, buddy, I got to talk to her alone. That's just the way it is. And then I'm going to talk to you alone too. So you can make it equal, and you'll see the uncomfortableness happen, or he'll just say, or she'll say, no, he has to come with me. And you never say, okay, I'm not going to interview you. If the woman says he has to come in with me, you allow it, and you're just careful of the questioning. But that is a red flag for you. So so trying to find that time, even if it's a 5-minute conversation, just to say, I hope you feel comfortable with me, because I'm always here for you. So if you ever want to come in, and like you did when she came in, you were able to help her get some food. So just being aware of that. And if you suspect it, ask the question, are you safe in your relationship? Right? Because a lot of women say they never disclosed it because no one ever asked them directly. They'll say things like, you're not abused, are you? Well, who's going to say yes? Right? Because that you're closing down you open discussion that you've already closed down. So just be comfortable and practice, talk to coworkers about it. Thank you for that. Those were great examples. Really, really good.
Does anybody else have questions? Or I will point out a resource that Melissa put in the chat there. It's a vicarious trauma toolkit. And what I'll do actually, when I send out the follow-up email to this session, there have been a couple of resources shared. I'll include those links in the
Perfect.
email
Thank you, Sydney.
as well.
Vicarious trauma is a good, interesting topic, and you
Mhm.
know, interesting, and I know at the I used to work at, like I do a little bit of group work with them, but in their shelter, they actually have a lead who actually picks different team members to make sure that they're, you know, how are they feeling about the work they do, and how does it impact them when they go home. And same with our work. I mean, you know, I had a young woman last week. There was an overdose in my community, and this was a woman that was actually on my on the interview team 22 years ago that interviewed me. We were very grassroots back then, and I went in for a second interview, and there was a 16-year-old girl with a baby, and she interviewed me for the position, and she took me to the groups. I ran the CPNP program, and I worked with her for a few weeks. She went to all the groups with me, kind of helped show me the ropes, and introduced me to people. And she went on to get a diploma, and I really thought she was, you know, one that had escaped the trauma and got through in a better way. And she died of a crack overdose last week. It was very sad. It was, you know, I was very upset by it, and had to take after the funeral, I took the afternoon off because I was just such in shock by it, that because she was the one that, you know, did okay. So
Right.
yeah, we have to take care of ourselves in this work, self-care for ourselves. And this
Yeah.
toolkit, you know, when you're reading some of this, you can look at it and say, what
That's
do I
right.
need to start doing? What do I need to do
Yeah.
to take care of myself, right?
It's a
We're
resource
just
for
as
us as
important.
well, right?
Absolutely. Because we're
Yeah.
as important. If we don't take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
how, you know, there's an article I read the other day about the worker that goes home empty. You know, she's making sure everybody else's cup is filled up all day, but then she goes home with an empty cup. That's
Yeah.
not the purpose of our job. You know,
Right.
we're as important as our participants.
Yeah. Yeah. I know when we were going through that body check one about different sort of physical symptoms, I definitely did a little mental run through on
Good.
on myself, right? Just,
Yeah.
oh yeah, there's some things to think about. So just, I guess, another check to see if there are any other questions or comments for Maureen before we start to look at wrapping things up. Unless there was more content or anything,
No, the
Maureen?
one thing I just
had
wanted to say
something.
is if you're a
Oh,
mother and you're doing this work, you know, make sure you're checking in with yourself about, because, you know, if you're parenting a, say, a 4-year-old, and you're working with a lot of mothers that have 4-year-olds, and you're seeing a lot of neglect, it's really important that you know, because I remember when my kids were little, sometimes I'd be like, oh, and sometimes I see my grandbaby, how well he's cared for, and, you know, has all these opportunities that, you know, so many kids don't ever get. But try to, you know, you know, we learn to accept that, you know, some kids have less than other children, but make sure the impact on you is that you're checking in on yourself, and debrief with coworkers, and like I said, look at, you know, if you're like, wow, I'm using a little more substance than I would normally use, or I feel like having that extra glass of wine at night, don't be afraid to check in with yourself about these things too, and because your mental health is really important too. And don't ever push yourself aside, because it's not always about everybody else. We have to practice self-care too, and that's how we can model. And someone was talking about self-disclosure. You know, in the groups we run, you know, we try to share a little bit of ourselves and our personal story, maybe not anything to, you know, and making sure that it's serving them only. It's not about serving us, that we've done our own work, but, you know, letting them know that, yeah, I've experienced mental health problems, or I've experienced anxiety, or I find it hard when my children do this, or I find it, you know, I think that makes us real. So self-disclosure, some workers say, I don't even let them know my last name. Like, I don't share anything. I tend to be more, you know, if that's going to be the tool that helps them trust me more, then I'm willing to share a little. I'm careful about what I share.
Yep.
I'm purposeful about what I share.
Yeah.
But you know, self-disclosure can be a tool
Yeah.
that helps you build relationships too. So, but
Agree.
taking care of ourselves is super important.
Thank you. And I do believe somebody had started to chime in there.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Who was that?
Now you have to say.
Maybe I was mishearing.
It was me. It
Oh,
was
hi.
me, Florence.
Hi, Florence.
I had more of a case management one.
Okay.
I have a young mom who is has a lot of complex, complex trauma and concurrent disorders. Has lost her first child to CAS for many, many reasons. We've put safety plans around her, got her many different houses, which she was soon evicted from. We've managed to put her in counseling for de-escalation. She's doing somewhat good, but it's her mental health that seems to rebound. And, during these times, she'll lose her phone. She will be at risk. She will be, possibly raped. And she's on the cusp of being human trafficked. So, and she just messaged me this week that she's pregnant again.
Okay.
Would be by an abuser. So we've put everything in place with her, with our counseling team, with Royal Ottawa Hospital for Mental Health. I mean, we've had pretty much everything, and she's missed maybe about 5 appointments. I've found different ways for to sing lullabies when she's to try and de-escalate her, to stand away from her, and it works. There's so many tricks that we were able to do, but it's just to be able to reach her and get her into that safe space to want to make that change. And it's so difficult because the trauma is so complex.
Yeah. And it's such a sad part of our work, right? When and it sounds like you've really tried everything with this woman, and it's hard because you never, I try to always say you never give up, or you say there's nothing I can do, because we can always try something. But sometimes I have a client come to mind when you spoke of this client, because there's some women that they have so much trauma, and really we have limited resources for intense therapy that is not just 10 sessions and then you're done, right? Because sometimes it takes 10 sessions just for a woman to trust somebody. So we don't really have, a lot of us don't have anywhere to send some of these women, or the wait lists are so great, or they don't show up, or they don't supply transportation, or they don't, the equity isn't there. So and that's where we have to come up with ideas of maybe raising some money just for travel, or coming up with trying to get donations for, something, so that we can be of some service to these women or people that need this kind of help. But when you're dealing with that level of trauma, there's a fine line too, because sometimes we want to service them so much. So we'll have a woman in group, let's say, that isn't group ready. And, we're disservicing all the other women in the group, because this woman isn't able to focus or retain, maintain composure, or not overshare to the point of triggering everybody, that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's really hard. And it's hard on us, because we go to, we go home at night sometimes and worry about these people. And sometimes, it's about calling 911. It's about, sometimes it's that drastic step of, okay, this is, sometimes a woman just needs that 3 or 4 day assessment to try to help get balanced. And, coworker and I were talking about that. And, I said to her, have you ever thought of just maybe that she needs to be, she needs an assessment, and it's formed, and no one likes that word, but that may be part of our work. And that's a hard thing. And I, always talk to your supervisor.
And unfortunately, if they do get formed, they get out the next morning.
I know that's the thing. And
with no safety plan,
and then they'll never come back to you, right? And then you lose them, right? So that is the problem, right? And that is a tough decision to make, especially when you're working with someone who may or may not be suicidal, right? And that's a whole different discussion.
We seem to get a lot of those high needs clients.
Wow.
Because I guess because of our approach is different.
Tell us again what project you work for.
The Sacred Child program in Minwash Lodge.
Okay. Yeah.
And so of course we work with Oshki, and we have a complete wraparound service. And sometimes the needs are so high that we're not able to. And I think in this case it's just a matter of time. Like it's like a 7-year investment, and you just keep on going and hoping that someday they'll get the spark to be able to value themselves as much as we value them.
That's right. That's a good way to put it. And I think too, it's that, you know, coming from that harm reduction. So if the woman is pregnant, what can you do? One thing you can do is give her prenatal vitamins, right off the bat. If you can just convince her to take those prenatal vitamins, that can help so much, right? If she's using substance, have the conversation with her. I'd rather you use cannabis than drinking, because we know drinking causes a brain injury, right? It's those kind of things. So, and don't underestimate the difference you are making. You may not be able to fix everything, but don't forget, every time you plant a seed, you may have a greater impact on someone that you never realize. You know, like I worked with a woman once, and I couldn't even figure out why she was at group. I couldn't figure out, you know, because she didn't really self-disclose. She didn't seem to fit and then years later, she told me I changed her life with my words. And I was like, I don't even understand how that's possible. But, you know, don't underestimate your impact on people, and the work you do is incredible. And to work in that level of high stress with those, for, you know, women with so much unresolved trauma, that's not easy. That's not easy. Thank you for sharing that. It's really perspective too, right? Of the work sometimes, you know, and we can all work in different levels, and sometimes it's like a ebb and flow, right? You might work with some really high risk people, and then you may not work with such high risk, or you may not really know. It's hard to identify what the risks are, but most likely if they're part of your program, there's risks, right? So just try to remember that your impact is probably greater than you think it is. That's key, to keep going and keep trying and keep reducing the risk as much as you can.
Just something on another tangent. I just wanted to say social media has a big impact on people's lives now.
Oh, it does.
And you know, for intimate partner violence, that's one of the key factors of chatting with other people, but also ensuring that your clients have a safe profile when they're on their different things, and if Snapchat, their location is off, and different things like that. So
yeah,
it's a whole nother ball game with social media.
It is, and that would be, you know, it would be great to be able to do some webinars on that kind of thing around safety on that, and because you're right, and there's so much false information out there, you know, I mean, I noticed the other day on Instagram, there was a whole thing there was a page or whatever you call it. I'm not really great on the language, but a site, I guess, that was called bad parenting, and it was actually showing bad parenting, and I was like, you know, I found that disturbing on so many levels. Like, and you know that, you know, people follow this stuff. So yeah, and it's what we think is humorous around, you know, some things that are posted, and I think some people are think, oh, it's just relax, it's not that big a deal. But you know, again, we have to, and so if we have social media pages, we need to encourage that positive things and proper information. And it's not just fun, it's actually parent education. Let's get some real good education out there that we know is factual. And you know, around infant feeding, around sleep, getting back to sleep on the right positions, that kind of thing, because you know, there's such false information out there, and social media is not helping that. So thanks for bringing that up.
There's, I think that I definitely wrote that down around, you know, learning opportunities for safety planning around social media and navigating things like profiles and location, and things like that. I don't know if you've seen some of the posts going around where women, apparently there's a hand gesture, a way to hold your hand in a picture that might indicate that, you know, there are problems.
Yeah. A sign in the window, a certain color in the window or something. Yeah. Or
So
that
people have
thing where
been-
people are doing this or something like that.
Right.
There's, yeah, those, yeah.
And even pictures you might post that your partner might not you know, see that you're holding your hand that certain way, that might be an indicator to people, but anyhow.
Yeah, or the little, I think there's a little dots or something too. Yeah,
Right.
there's lots of different ones. And again, being careful of that, because if your partner sees that and then he sees it on you or sees you do it, right? You, again, it's that safety. So for sure. I just wanted people to know that, like Sydney will send out the links. I think we already have.
Yep.
You can print the worksheets. You can actually get the book. And like I said, I have quite a few books. We were given quite a few, like I have enough for everybody on the workshop today. If you're interested in a book, I'm happy to mail it to you at our cost. That's not a problem. And I just wanted to say a special thank you to Sydney for all her support and continual support of the CAPC CPNP programming. You know, you're just so great at encouraging workshops to be done and supporting people in doing the workshops like me. And if anyone has any questions about this toolkit or would like to talk with me privately or email me a question, please feel free, mhampton@connectwell.ca. And you can certainly call me and leave me a message. I'll get back to you. And, you know, I just think it's just great that everybody participated today, and we had some discussion around it because, like I said, I'm not an expert in any of this, but this is one toolkit that I really believe in. And I know in the CAPC CPNP world, we have had a lot of different toolkits, but this is a great one. And this is something that I never get bored of looking at, and even getting ready for the training. I'm like, oh, there's a sheet. I don't ever use that sheet. I'm gonna start thinking about that. So, and I will suggest that, you know, it would be really great if we could get a book developed for fathers. So maybe that's something that you know, we all have to keep in mind, and start developing more programs within, because like I said, we got a great grant, and we are starting the fathering program in September. So excited about that. And I hope that our evaluation is good, so I'll be able to come and share what we've done, and maybe other people can do it as well. So
thank you so
Just
much.
put up the last slide one more time so I can take of your information. I'll just.
Oh, sure.
Snipping too old to do that.
Yeah, I kind of got rid of that fast, didn't I?
And I will say that a little earlier, I put a link to our survey for the event, and I'll put it in the chat again. Happy to hear your thoughts on both today's session and your ideas for future sessions, and any comments that you might have. That's an anonymous survey link there.
And please give honest feedback, because I want to learn what I can improve on, and you know, so don't be afraid to tell me the truth.
Constructive criticism always
Absolutely.
right?
That's how I learn too.
Well, Maureen, now it's my turn to offer you gratitude for your time. And I know it's you know, you don't kind of want to wear that expert hat, but again, but I want to honor your wisdom and your experience and your passion for this resource, for the work that you do, for your knowledge around group work. So many people were thrilled with that webinar as well. You've given a lot of time to us over the last few weeks, and
thank you.
We're so appreciative.
Thank you so much, Sydney.
We, you know, yeah, it's fun, and you know, we may come, you know, exploring future possibilities that your time allows. And just letting everybody know again, we have recorded this session, so we will be sharing a link to the recording sometime in the next couple of weeks, you know, and it will also be on WebConnects, available on the video archive there. And keep an eye out for the announcement coming by the end of the day today for the father event on June 16th. We hope to see you there. That's a good place to maybe bring encouragement of resources around dads, because we'll have representatives from Dad Central there, so they might be able to share what they already have. Maybe they already have something.
Yeah, they have some great resources too. Yeah.
Or be involved in some development. So thank you again to Maureen and to everybody who joined us today. It was great to have you here. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and that we will see you all again soon.
Thanks, everybody. It was a real pleasure.
Okay. Take care, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.